And no, the head wraps was not planned. We just ain't doing our hair.
Okay, this is what happens when you're black and you have a lot of hair.
There we go. Okay.
Wasn't no time to do it. So,
At all.
welcome back, y'all. We are happy to see you. Today, we are going to be doing a very requested video,
Mhm.
which is questions to ask your therapist.
Yes.
I think our second episode ever was dating your therapist.
Oh, yep, yep. And we was going
Um,
into like the dynamics and how I
mhm,
fired a lot of my
mhm,
therapists.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we ever went over like specific questions to ask. So,
No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think. But before we get started, we gotta do our check
oh,
in.
yeah,
Check in. How we feeling? How we feeling?
we are feeling good. Very just neutral. Just and I was telling you, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that I'm happy because I don't have anything to be unhappy about.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Work has been busy. Um, when you have 20 clients
Right.
and 18 out of the 20 have schizophrenia, it's a
No,
busy day every day.
you might
So
get it.
right, right. You might come out here and a little voice yourself. So it's busy, but I love the work and
Yeah.
I love my clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So everything has been going good.
I feel like I'm the same as you. I've just been like coasting.
Hmm.
I feel like I've had my moments where I'm like, oh shit, like shit is falling apart, and literally the same day or later on in the day, shit figures itself out. Like it works
Hmm.
itself out. So like I've just been like chilling, not in a bad mood, not in like a super happy mood, but like I'm taking it as something good. I just
Yeah.
need to chill out and relax.
Hmm.
Um, I've been betting. I picked up.
You've been betting.
I'm not a gambler, bro.
Oh, betting.
I'm not a gambler,
Not you doing parlays.
bro. So I got the Price Pick app, and then I went on your wager, and I used Sante's daddy's money because it was like he was like all right, put 150. I said okay. He bet he lost, and there was still money left.
Uh huh.
And I started betting, and I bet it like 3 different times in one. So far as of yesterday, I won $143.
Period, sis.
I withdrew that money. I know when to stop.
Bro, I
I know.
can't. I can't gamble. Like,
I'm not a gambler. It just was like low key fun though. Like I would literally bet. I would
hmm
do my statistics, like look up the stats. I do not like watch sports. I don't.
hmm
So I literally look at the stats of whoever's playing, went
hmm
based off of that. That's one thing with being smart. And
doing
I bet,
research.
and then I log off, and the next morning I check, and I'm like, oh, I got
I'm
money.
crying. I was getting my nails done this week, and my nail tech's boyfriend texted her that he won his like parlay round or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and she was like, "It was my prayer," and I was like, "Yes, you better pray over your gambling." But oh, I forgot that. Okay, I had. Speaking of sports,
Mm-hmm.
I took my dad to the Cosm. You know
No.
what that is?
The
In
cosmo one?
Inglewood.
Yeah, yeah.
In Inglewood. So the Cosm, for those of you who don't know, is like an immersive experience, and they have a dome part where you go inside, and it's like we watched the basketball game, so it was like we were watching the basketball game from on the court.
So was
Like
it really worth it? Because I've heard mixed reviews.
I loved it,
Yeah. Okay.
but you have to sit in the right section.
Mm,
There's section one, which is like down there. I feel like that's too close.
super
That's like sitting in the first row of the movies.
movies. Yeah.
Row two, we sat in the first row of section two.
Okay.
That was kind of perfect. So I feel like anywhere in section two is pretty good. And then section three is probably good too. But it was, yeah, it was like closer than front row. Like we were sitting like on the paint. Um, so he loved it. My dad is a big kid,
That is dope.
and I needed to show him that I appreciate him. So just me and him went, and he's been working really hard on my parents' house is being
Oh
renovated,
yeah,
and
you said
like
that.
he's like overseeing everything because he just can't. He hired people to do it, and then he'll come behind them and fix what they didn't do.
Mm.
So he's just been working really hard, and I just wanted to show him that we appreciate him. So took him to that, and he really enjoyed it. One last thing, I had my last session with my therapist.
You did. Oh my
This
gosh.
is the longest relationship with a therapist I've ever had. We worked together for 3 years. I
Oh
first,
my gosh.
yeah,
What?
yesterday.
So when did you guys start? Because I remember it was a while ago when you were like, she was saying like, it seems like the reason you came in,
Hmm.
we kind of
We worked
worked
through it.
through that,
Hmm.
and you found other stuff.
Yeah.
But like, when was it that you were like, oh yeah, we're really about to end?
Um, when I broke up with my
Uh
ex,
huh. Oh, that was like y'all last
yeah,
one.
because I didn't have anything else to like process through.
Yeah.
Like, I came in there and 3 years ago for grief therapy. We worked a lot on that for the first like year and a half, 2 years. Um, more like more like two and a half.
Mhm.
And then the last 6 months or so was really just like processing whether or not I wanted to stay in that relationship. Um, and then processing the breakup and how I was going to do it and how I felt afterwards. And when I didn't really feel like torn up or anything afterwards, I was just like, well, girl, how was your day? It just got to be more like of a
Yeah.
conversation rather than there. And therapy, I feel, should always be conversational, but I just wasn't, I didn't have much to bring to session anymore.
Did you guys tirade out like go
Hmm.
bi-weekly and
Hmm.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So she gave me the option. So we were doing weekly and then we did bi weekly. And then she gave me the option to either do routinely once a month check in or to do as needed. And the difference is if I did routinely once a month, it was going to be like on a set day every month. But as needed is like if I
Yeah.
feel like I need to talk to her that month, I can text her, email her, and ask her, do you have any cancellations or whatever, and then she'll just scoop me in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm proud of
So
you.
yeah, thank
You're
you.
ending your journey and I'm starting mine.
I'm proud of you
Thankfully,
too, girl.
I finally found someone that I'm like, okay, I'll test out.
Hmm.
But was I think I told you I was like, this is the first black therapist I will have since I was a kid.
Wow.
Which is probably why I've been firing all my therapists
Yeah.
because I feel like I think I said this before that I feel like the therapists that I've had really cannot understand
Hmm.
some of the cultural references or just like what I feel as a black woman. And
Hmm.
so I found myself getting triggered by the therapist when they're like, "Oh, you're so strong," or "You
Mm.
got this," and I'm like, "I'm not. I don't want to go into a space where I'm supposed to be comfortable and vulnerable and still
Hmm.
have that label placed on me." So
Hmm.
I finally, like, I looked through a lot of the therapists. I was like looking, weeding out
Hmm.
if your orientation, like your theoretical orientation, didn't align.
Hmm.
Nope. Um, if your like what is that like your niche or like
Oh,
whatever population like
right.
didn't align with mine.
Your desired demographic.
There we go.
Hmm.
Um, not I'm not too religious, so I did weed out the ones I was like Christian based, and I was
Hmm.
like, not what I need right now.
Hmm.
That's for another day.
Hmm.
And so I was doing a lot of weeding, came down to a few, found one. I said, okay, she looked ghetto enough. She's so professional. Like she looked like professional, but she looked like outside work. She'll probably, you know. But she's like
Rat tat
older.
tat
She
tat.
giving like auntie vibes, which
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, she's been in the game for 10 years. So I was like, okay, have my first session with her on Wednesday of next week, the 19th, whatever day that is,
Hmm.
and I'll have an update next week on how that goes. So
Clap for Brittany, everybody.
hopefully she makes it past the 30-day probation.
Please. Oh my God, I'm gonna be praying. Please, please do something right. But also give her some slack.
I am. I
It's a
am.
learning curve. As long as she's not doing no crazy shit, like you guys both have to get to know one another.
Yeah.
So you have to also be willing to tell her what's working for you, what's not. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So don't cut it. I know it ain't nothing to cut that bitch off, but give her a chance. But it's funny
Yeah.
that you mentioned the religious part because the therapist that I just ended with, when I first met her, I didn't know that she was like she gives you the option to include religion in your therapeutic process if you want. And at first I was like, when she asked me, I was like, no, because I was scared that like whatever I said to her would be met with judgment. She was gonna be like, well, that's not of the Lord.
Or one of those dismissive type that's like, just pray about
Right,
it.
just pray about it. Because I love me a good prayer, but also God helps those who help themselves. He gives us prayer, but He also gives us free will. So, I'm of both worlds. Um, I do consider myself to be more of a spiritual person than a religious person because I feel like religion comes with a lot of harsh lines and little room for exploration. But I do consider myself to be a Christian, and so when she gave me that option, I was like, no, I'm good. Let's just strictly do like therapy. But when ultimately I decided to include it because I do want a closer relationship with God and to be able to lean on Him because it's a lot to be worried about in this life, and I would rather lean on a source who I feel like can aid me through life. So ultimately, I decided to include it, and I have to say, she did a wonderful job of like she didn't bring up anything like religious unless I brought it up. She didn't. It was no like hellfire and brimstone. No, you're going to hell. We talked about sex. We talked about all kind of stuff. And I never felt judged by her, but I feel like it depends on the therapist, which is why this episode is going to be about what to ask your therapist. That's why today we're going to be talking about questions to ask your therapist, what to look for your specific needs.
Yes.
Oh, let me get my list, girl.
We have a lot of questions. We won't be going over all of them, but
Mhm.
like I think we each have some that we believe are like really prominent.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like basic intro questions that we probably don't have to dive too deep into
Mhm.
is cancellation rescheduling policy, especially if you are not paid with insurance.
Mhm.
Some therapists do still charge if you cancel too late. Um, Sometimes there's like what 24 hours or whatever
48 hours usually.
ahead of time before you cancel. Like just basic, policies like that. Usually, most offices, no matter where you go to, have because they do have other clients. They usually schedule in a way that's going to work with like their own schedule. Or if they're people like me, I usually schedule some of my most high maintenance clients midweek.
Mm-hmm.
So I start off with a little like, okay, lightweight, midweek, those are the heavy hitters. I end my week with some more lightweight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's for our health as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with that. Also, if you're going to therapy online, you might want to ask about a technical difficulties policy. Um, I went to therapy online, and so my therapist was like, okay, if the technical difficulties are on me, then we'll just reschedule for another time. Or if you want to have our session over the phone, we can do that too. If the technical difficulties are on you, then we can schedule for a different time. Or if you choose to cancel, then you'll just have to pay the cancellation fee. So yeah, ask about technical difficulties.
Yep. Um, and then also when starting out, um, also have a preference. I know some of them, like when we're talking about technical difficulties, a lot of therapists right now are online, but don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like you have to do that if it doesn't work for you. So you can do hybrid, which is some sessions online, some sessions off. You could do totally in person. Just take the time to find out like what works for you because you still need a safe space to be like very, very vulnerable. So see if that therapist is open to like working with you in person as well or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those are like straight basics. Also
Mm-hmm.
ask, of course, about pricing.
Oh yeah.
100%. If you don't have insurance, always ask about their pricing because you do have to pay for therapy. I know,
Mm-hmm.
like when we were in school, they were saying like we learned about law and ethics, right?
Hmm.
And we have people mental health in our hands, so it's not like a hair appointment, you don't pay me, cancel,
Right.
right? So for most of the time, they do continue therapy for a certain amount of time
Hmm.
after a missed payment because
Hmm.
it's unethical of us to just stop because we didn't get paid.
Right.
Now, this doesn't mean you just go around having sessions and not getting paid because that debt will still be left for you to
Hmm.
like pick up.
Hmm.
But they will let you know, like maybe in your next session, hey, you did miss payment last session. You know, we're gonna need you to pay it before we do. But by the time we get to the third session or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be.
Yeah, there were definitely times when, say, if my session was on a Tuesday, but I got paid on the Friday, I would just ask in advance, like that morning or something, like, hey, is it okay if I pay you on Friday? And she would always be super cool about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So those are some good ones. Now when we're going more into like who you're working with and how you want to work with your therapist with treatment because it's a collaborative approach, right? You can't
Hmm.
rely on your therapist to treat or fix you if you're not like working with them or like pulling your weight. So some of the basic like start off questions is like how would you describe your personal therapy style? And so I know like everybody, of course, haven't went to school to be therapists or clinicians, but there's multiple different theoretical approaches. So and it's also multiple different roles.
Hmm.
So when I was looking for a therapist, I was looking for MFT specifically and
Hmm.
not social workers or LPCCs
Yeah.
because they all like are taught differently, right?
Hmm.
MFTs are marriage and family therapists, which me and Tierra are, and that doesn't mean we're restricted to marriage, families,
That's a
or
really common misconception.
it is a misconception that
Hmm.
basically marriage and family therapist only works with couples and families, which isn't it, right? Marriage and family therapist pretty much works with all different type of populations, individuals, couples, young, old, whatever the case may be, in many different dynamics. We are just taught from a family centered approach. A lot of the theories that we learn are usually tied back to family dynamics,
Hmm.
how you grew up, attachments, and so forth, right? Social workers, they also are able to work with individuals conducting therapy. They are more their background stems more so from the system
Right.
approach, right? So
The system is in like government entities and
yes,
yeah.
so yeah, and this subsystem within that and stuff. So their approach is a little bit different. And the LPCCs, I really don't know too much about.
Mm-mm.
So I just like kind of.
Yeah.
So if you are LPCC or you know a lot about, just let us know
Yeah.
because yeah, I don't really know too much, but I specifically go through marriage and family therapists.
Hmm.
I also realize that working with other social workers, they work completely different than like
Very
marriage and
different.
family. They really are like more case managers. Like
Yeah.
it's hard for them to remove themselves out of that like resource. You need
Right.
resources. You need this, which is good because all therapists are supposed to advocate for you,
Hmm.
even though we are not social workers or case workers or whatever. We still are here to advocate on your behalf and provide resources.
Hmm.
So, knowing which theoretical approach works for
Hmm.
you.
And
Um,
being mindful that even though two therapists might work in the same theoretical lens,
mhm.
doesn't mean that they practice the same way
No,
at all.
no,
So you really have to like be mindful of. I hate to say it, but like you gotta catch a vibe with your
yeah,
therapist.
yeah,
Like you have to feel a connection with them, feel like they really are benevolent and want your best and are looking to provide your best interest and all that good stuff.
yes,
So, yeah.
yeah. Those are definitely
Um,
important. What's another one you got?
a question that I really like is if you had to describe therapy to someone who had never heard of it, how would you describe it?
I like that.
I feel like their answer will tell you a lot about what they think about therapy, what they think therapy is, because we were taught that as a therapist, you're not giving advice.
Mm-hmm.
You're not telling clients what to do. You're helping them help themselves. And one of our teachers would always say, our job is to make sure that they don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
So if I'm constant, if you're coming to me with an issue and I'm constantly telling you what exactly to do instead of helping you make your own conscious decision, you're always going to need me to tell you what to do. You're never going to not need me. And there will be a time when we have to terminate. And
Exactly.
you have to know how to go about life on your own using the skills that we're taught.
Yeah, that's a definitely a good one. I think also the therapist. I think an add-on question would
Mhm.
also be, how would you know that you're entering the end of treatment, right? And that
Mhm.
goes into like what you're embarking on your end and so forth, right? And the end isn't always successful for everybody.
Yeah.
So how Tiara was just saying, like, our goal is to where you don't need us, right? If you are in therapy and you feel like you're constantly relying on it or need it, and like it's not really helping you or improving you, that also may be time for therapy to end, right? Because you and your therapist may not be the best fit. And one of the things we have to take into consideration when we did our law and ethics
Mhm.
was that if your client's not progressing in treatment or if you're not helping them and they're not benefiting from you, you have to look for other options, right?
Yeah.
So you have to feel comfortable enough that like this clinician that I'm working with is going to make sure that like I'm going to get the best help needed, whether it's from them or somebody else, right? Ego, pride, and stuff to the
Mhm.
side. And that's going to be something you fill out and also ask questions about and stuff like that. How do you measure our progress? Some people do assessments or
Yeah.
reflections.
And I feel like that might sound weird to some people. Like, if you feel like you're needing therapy, maybe it's time for that to end. But, like, what we're trying to say is in therapy, you should be learning skills to apply to your daily life, right? So, say you have therapy twice a month. If you're continuously learning skills, maybe you do need that, twice a month, every month, you do feel like you need it. That's fine to feel like you need it. But if we're 6 months, a year in, there should be some skills learned at that point to carry you through those 2 weeks until you see your
Exactly.
therapist again.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be like, oh my God, something just happened and I
Yeah.
feel like I need to talk to them right now.
Yeah.
Like, you should be able to be like, okay, this happened. This is the skill that I learned to be able to get me through. And when I talk to them next week, I will tell them about how I got through it. And
Exactly.
you're not always going to get through it successfully. It's trial and error. And something that just because you learn something one day doesn't mean you're going to be able to correctly apply it the next day. So, trial and error.
Exactly.
But the point is to make sure that you feel like you're learning something and there has to be evidence of that knowledge. So,
And you shouldn't. There shouldn't be an increased need for therapy sessions
mhm,
unless there was a major life event that has happened. That's
mhm,
like more so how you could reflect and see if treatment is working. If you guys are going weekly or bi-weekly, and then all of a sudden you're like, I need 2 times a week, like I can't. But there's been no major life changes in your, going on. Then that's a telltale sign you're relying on therapy. You
mhm,
leave therapy feeling relieved, and you're like, oh, she's really helping me, or he's
mhm,
really helping me, and then you can't last until that next week when you're requesting more.
mhm.
It's not working.
Yeah, or sometimes that could definitely be the case. Sometimes some people really just need more.
Yeah, we don't mean to just like in therapy still go. We just are trying to help you know when your therapist is the right fit for you.
Mhm.
That goes into like some of the questions you were giving me when we was like figuring out what questions I should ask.
Mhm.
Um, is how do they plan on challenging you? If you're someone like me, I could be very like dismissive of my issues sometimes. Not in denial. I'll just be dismissive. Like I could say my issues and then be like, but I got it.
Mhm.
Or I don't want to talk about it right now. And like usually most people just go along with it. And so I am at a stage where I need a therapist who's going to push me a little bit and challenge me. And a lot of times it's what a lot of us need, right? People in our life are so used to our patterns that when you get a therapist, they're coming in and they're kind of like shaking things up. They're not going to be like your mom, cousin, sister, brother, friends who's going to just go along or be like, I already know how you are. Like, you want them to kind of push you outside of your comfort zone. A lot of times with my clients, I tell them probably first session, like, we're going to cover topics that you may feel uncomfortable with. I said, I may stop and give you time, but I'm going to circle back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I give them that heads up.
Yeah.
And so they already know what to expect.
Your therapist is not supposed to always agree with you. If they were always going to agree with you, then what are we here for?
Mm-hmm.
If you just have all the answers already.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. In that same vein, yeah, how would you deal with a client who was showing some resistance to the therapeutic process altogether?
Mm-hmm.
Showing some or having some difficulty opening up.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because a lot of people they come to therapy because they know that they need it, but that does not mean that they're ready to talk about what needs to be talked about. So um, it's really important to know, like maybe have them give you an example of how they have dealt with someone who has showed some
Yeah.
resistance or difficulty opening up. Um, it's kind of it's kind of similar to working with kids, and it's like you have to build rapport first. Talk about things that they enjoy, coping skills that have worked for them in the past, and things like that. So
Yeah.
you can build that trust so that eventually you can work up. Because we're not just going to dive into
Exactly.
trauma on day one, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to be assessments, it's going to be evaluations to see how best to help.
Yeah. And then also like starting therapy, even though we have these list of questions to ask the therapist, you also have to like ask yourself some of these same questions, like how am I going to react when my therapist challenges me?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to like take it personally and feel attacked or whatever the case may be? But also going in, and if you're ready, if possible, you could go in letting the therapist know like these are topics that stress me out X Y Z,
Mm-hmm.
and I may not be full all there to talk about it, and so
Yeah.
it kind of helps and prepare them to know, and then be straight up like this is my first therapist or this is my 10th therapist. You're my 10th therapist. Like I'm not gonna open up. Am on edge, like I'm a little uncomfortable, whatever the case may be, just to break the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna help a lot.
When you just said that could be your 10th therapist, that reminded me, if and when things don't work out with a therapist or your second, third, fourth, fifth, please take note of what did not work. Make sure it's like a romantic relationship. You go through the motions, you break up with someone, you learn from that relationship. Now moving forward, you know what you don't want and what you do want.
Yeah.
Same thing with a therapist. If something didn't work out, take note of what you didn't like, what didn't work for you, and relay that to your next therapist so we're not repeating a cycle, you know?
And add to the list that we're already giving you. Add those to the list. I think also one of the major things, because I know we have like fellow clinicians watching us as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major things that I had a problem with is my therapist or psychiatrist treating me like a therapist, and so it challenged. It was very challenging. So one of the main questions is,
got triggered.
Yeah, yeah. How do you plan on treating me like a client and not a fellow therapist?
Yeah.
Because I think I even told you, like, do you tell your therapist you're a therapist? Like, I was at the point to where, like, maybe I should hide that I'm a therapist because I ran through therapists also, not only because they triggered me with some of the words they were saying with me being so strong and stuff, but also, like, my approach is very different from theirs. My approach is different from hers. Like we have different approaches because we're like individuals, you know? So I had therapists that would like highlight or point out things that I'm struggling with or whatever, but they would never fully like explain their perspective or explain what they're seeing so I could understand. They would just say, like, oh yeah, I see that XYZ, but you should already know you're a therapist.
Right.
And so it left me kind of hanging because I'm like, yes, I'm a therapist, therapist, although like I haven't been getting that long. Like,
Right.
and also I'm not here to just like
You're
treat
not here in
myself.
therapist mode.
Hmm.
You're here in client mode. So like when we're in therapy, I'm fully not thinking as a therapist. And I know that's hard for people to believe. Like when people say like, "Oh, you're a therapist. Are you going to evaluate us? You're going to psychological." Blah, blah, blah. No, you're not paying me first of all. It's some very expensive. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not expensive. But
DMH and DHS think we are. But.
okay. But no, I'm not here to be a therapist. I'm not thinking with my therapeutic brain at that point. I am coming in with my issues, with
Yeah.
my concerns. You should be explaining things to
Yeah.
me like I'm five.
Yeah.
So
That's genuinely like a very good question to ask if you're
mhm,
fine, if you yourself as a clinician is finding yourself, struggling with that.
mhm.
So jumping in saying like, how do you treat me as a client and not a fellow therapist?
Yeah, and I just really cannot emphasize enough being honest with your therapist about what is not working. Like if you want to give them a chance, if you feel like it's something that can be rectified, if you tell them about it, please be honest with them and be like, I don't really feel like that works for me. I would really like if you did this instead. Or can we work on this? Things like that. So you can at least give them a chance to fix it before you have to like move on and start over with another person. Because it can be exhausting to like every time you start over, you have to
Open up a can of
explain.
worms.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to open up old wounds. And those wounds might not be exactly closed yet, but it hurts to have to, constantly like, okay, I told you, and now it's kind of healing, but then something happens, and then I told somebody else, and it just like pours a little more salt every time. So, in order to have some preventative care, in order for you to, be on the most linear path of healing that you can, even though healing is not linear, um, yeah, be honest with your therapist.
Yeah. Be honest in all aspects, not even
Mm-hmm.
how like they are working with you, but if they're asking questions that, and if you're explaining a story or whatever case may be, and they ask questions for further information or insight, um, you shouldn't feel like you'll be judged if you are honest, right? Because then that means you probably shouldn't be with that therapist if you feel like, okay, I'm being judged. Or maybe it's just something that you just naturally feel because you feel judged outside of therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get in that room, be honest. They're not going to go and be like, oh, so this person like has these issues. Blah, blah. They're not gonna go tell the whole world. Like their
Mm-hmm.
job is to sit there and have confidentiality. If you ain't abusing, if you ain't watching abuse, elder and child, if you ain't saying I'm gonna kill myself and I have a plan, or I'm gonna kill somebody else, and they're literally gonna be keeping everything between you and them. The most
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna do is talk about it with their supervisors or whatnot, so they could get further assistance. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not to talk to it with their supervisors for like,
Kiki and
yeah,
yeah,
it's so they could further help you.
yeah.
So, and also in that aspect, I don't think I elaborated, but like if you are suicidal or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
be honest about that in therapy. You're
Mm-hmm.
not about to all of a sudden get like 5150 or a hold
Right.
on you. So the thing is that I explain to my clients is like, you know how it's the suicidal, homicidal, elder abuse, or child abuse is the
Mm-hmm.
only time we break confidentiality. I specifically go into suicidality a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more because I'm like, hey, you may have thoughts or passive thoughts or feelings of you not wanting to be here
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I really need to know because I could actually help you through that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could build skills or preventative tools to get you through that. The only time I'm going to break confidentiality if you do tell me like you're at the point to where it's beyond thoughts. You actively have a plan and you
Mm-hmm.
are going to carry it out.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be let me call everybody that you know or that I know. No, it's let me call my supervisor
Mm-hmm.
and then let me call maybe a facility that could help you
Yeah.
with this and they'll evaluate you more.
I
So if
feel
you're
like
having thoughts, talk it out.
yes, very important to be honest about that because I feel like a lot of people feel like if you say that you're feeling like not being here anymore, that we're automatically going to visions of you cutting yourself and, gun to your head and all that good stuff. That's not really what happens. Of course, there's going to be some concern for you, but that's just human to human concern.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think if they say something like that, it's gonna come them people to put you in the grippy sock hotel. That's not what's gonna happen. We're gonna talk to you about it first, see what's going on, see how we can help you resolve the feelings that you're having some, incredible difficulty with. And also, sometimes saying that you don't want to be here anymore is not necessarily suicidal.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes and you may not actually know what that means. And I say
right.
that in the essence that I realize that a lot of people say things like that because they're
Hmm.
just wanting relief
Right.
from whatever they're going through.
Right. It's not that you don't want to live anymore. It's that you don't want to be going through what you're going through anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, I have had the feeling of like, I just don't want to do this no more. Like, I'm tired of paying bills. I'm tired of having to get up early as fucking o'clock in the morning to go to work to get this money to give to y'all. Like, this is crazy. But that doesn't mean that I want to kill myself. That means I just want to,
Yeah, like turn
power
off.
off real quick.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying. Like I'm so glad we have like those holiday breaks where like our
mm-hmm.
holiday goes into like the weekend type.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we need a break.
Yeah.
From like patterns or stuff that's happening. So that's why it's okay to be honest about those
Mm-hmm.
things to really break down. Okay, you're probably feeling like this because of X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yeah, but that also goes in the question that you had on the list about like asking your therapist, what are the expectations you have of me?
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably going to hear the things that we just said.
Yeah.
Being honest, being open, and just telling your truth and being willing to work through things. Of course, amongst the other things, being on time and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you're late to therapy, if your therapy session starts at 3 and you come in at 3:30, it doesn't end at 4:30. It's gonna end at 4.
4.
Yeah, you're gonna pay.
350 as a matter of
You're
fact.
gonna pay for hours
Mm-hmm.
still because you came in late. So
Yeah.
really take hold of your session.
Mm-hmm.
Be present.
Yeah.
Um,
You paying for every single one of them minutes.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
use them. Be on time.
Mm-hmm.
If your therapist is late, then yes. If the session
Yes,
starts
sir.
at 3:30, it's gonna end at 4:30.
Yeah.
But if you're late, that's on you.
Yeah.
So take it seriously. And therapy only works if you're honest with yourself and with your therapist. But I feel like the most important part is to be honest with yourself,
1,000%.
because and telling the whole story.
1,000%.
Sometimes there would be like situations in past relationships I would want to tell my therapist about, but I don't want to tell the whole story because like maybe I was wrong and like I don't like that. So, like it helps. You have to be honest, tell the whole truth in order to get a whole solution potentially. So,
Is there any other expectations you may have for like your client exceptions you may have? What's the word?
expectations.
I am foggy. What did I say? Exceptions?
You said expectations, and then you said exceptions.
Okay. Do you have any expectations you lay out for your clients outside of like honesty and stuff?
Mm, not well, nothing that I haven't said before. I expect you to be honest. I expect you to tell me what's working for you and what's not working for you. I like to do periodic check-ins about like how things are going. If they feel like they've learned anything, if not, how can we tailor this to, better suit you, especially with our clientele these days,
Oh yeah.
because traditional talk therapy does not work for them.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes we're walking in the community and stuff
mhm.
like that.
Yeah, sometimes we're playing games, sometimes we're drawing, painting, sometimes we're, you know, outside playing basketball or whatever. So, yeah, I expect you to let me know what's working for you, what's not working for you.
Yeah.
I also expect you, if you have any prior therapeutic experience, tell me what went wrong with that experience.
Or like what worked.
Or what
Yeah.
went right. Yeah. Um, and I don't really set this expectation up front, but I do expect some accountability to be taken. I'm not a yes woman. Like I said, I'm not here to agree with everybody. So I will be holding you accountable for your role in things. However, I want everyone to also know that, as Kamala said, you didn't fall out of a coconut tree. You know, nobody was created in a vacuum. You are here, you are a collection of your experiences, and a lot of those experiences come from the communities that you find yourself in, the family you're a part of. So, while we're not putting blame on other people, we do have to realize that we are a collection of things. So, but yeah, you are also responsible for your life choices and everything like that. So, uh, yeah, responsibility, being honest, and telling me what works and what doesn't. That's really it. Yeah.
I think
What
I'm
about you?
also like bare minimal is
Mm-hmm.
like, especially with our clientele, I feel like we have to kind of say like, hey, don't pull your phone out. Like,
Mm.
make sure it's on silence because I've had clients like their partners blowing them up and they're like, and I'm
Mm.
like, hey, once you step in this room, like
Yeah.
I need all of the outside distractions to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So like it seems like it's basically you shouldn't have to explain it, but some people it's really hard for them to like let go of what's happening outside of the office or
Mm-hmm.
outside of that therapy room and for a whole hour. A lot of people don't unplug for an hour.
Yeah. No.
So I do expect that of my clients of being able to learn how to unplug. Um, let's see. You hit a lot of the points. I
Mm-hmm.
also talk my clients, I do have the expectation that like down the line, I want them open to family therapy, whether
Mm.
it's like with a sibling or whatever the case may be. I do tell them early on that, if I do find that there's like certain patterns or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like I can work with you on preparing for a family session or whatever.
Yeah.
But those are the main ones. But I think that was like a
That was,
good list
yeah.
of questions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Goes into our next segment, resources.
Oh, resource. Um, Hold on. I think therapy for Black girls has
Oh yeah,
a list of things to ask too.
yeah. A lot of like I realized a lot of the like websites and stuff where it has like assistance for people of color or specifically black people, they usually have linkages to other sites as well and stuff like that. So I would definitely say like check out therapy for black girls. A lot of them have what's that newsletter so you could get like
Mm-hmm.
updates.
Dr. Joy Harden Bradford is the founder and owner of Therapy for Black Girls, and I listen to her podcast religiously. I love her so bad. Hopefully, we can have her on the show one day, you know. But yeah, a nugget of wisdom.
Just because you have one.
You want to do it?
No, no.
Okay.
I love your negative wisdom.
Okay. Speaking right now, I'm speaking as a therapist. Our nugget of wisdom for today is help me help you. I have all of the clinical tools, and if I don't have the clinical tools to help you, I will get them. I will reach out to people to get the proper resources for you. I will educate myself and everything like that. But the best resource that we have in the therapeutic room is yourself. You know you best.
You're an expert.
You are an expert on yourself and your own life and what you've been through and how it's made you feel. And you are also an expert in how you want to move forward. So help me help you. Be honest with me. Be honest with yourself, so that we can help you. Move on with the healthiest and best life
Yeah.
that you envision for yourself.
I
So
actually have that on my door.
help me help you.
Uh huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right,
That's
y'all.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Double Dose
Remedies for the
Remedies.
soul. Thank you guys.